Okay, beginning our day. I've been away for a week, had a really nice time away, and first day went and spent one night at the Humboldt Vihara, and that's always nice to go there and spend time there, and seeing the owner there. She's 87, and every time I meet up with her, she surprises me in some way. And this time she surprised me by, we were talking about just health, and I was talking about an issue I might have with my thyroid health, and she said, "Oh, I know a yoga move for thyroid." And so she's 87, and she kind of gets on the ground and starts doing this kind of like crazy yoga move in front of me to show me yoga that I could do to help my thyroid. I just wasn't expecting that, and just kind of have that good energy even into old age. And went up to Pacific Hermitage, did a day-long retreat at Portland Friends of the Dhamma. That was nice. Spent an evening with the White Salmon and Portland lay people at Yoga Samadhi and White Salmon, which was also nice. And just a theme that wanted to talk about this morning that I've been riffing on a little bit, which is this idea of reducing or expanding our comfort zones, and that there is a pitfall in long-term practice, and it specifically seems to happen with once we practice for many years. And I've seen this happen in myself, and I've seen it in so many others, and it does seem to be a pitfall. At first I didn't think it was a pitfall, but now that I've reflected on it for a long time, I do think it is a pitfall that we get into when we practice for a very long time. And that's that idea of trying to optimize our external world to be just optimal for our meditation, optimal for us feeling comfortable. And there's this kind of reductionist view of practice where our comfort zone just gets smaller and smaller to the point where we're almost never comfortable unless we're in our little happy space, and then we feel comfortable only then. So really we want to be doing the opposite, that what practice is for is actually for expanding the comfort zone, and that every place can be our happy place. Every place can be a place where we feel comfortable, that whether we're in our kuti or we're traveling or doing some sort of activity, seeing it as just a change of postures. And then when we have that idea of just being able to be at ease and content in almost any situation, then our comfort zone gets bigger and bigger. So it comes up in the suttas, is one way we escape from the practice is it's too warm, it's too cold, I'm too hungry, I'm too full. So we actually, those are excuses to not practice, but then rather we actually practice abandoning defilements, abandoning the outflows, based on enduring. So based on enduring, this is the Kanti Barami, the patient endurance. So as we build this up, we find that even if it's too hot or too cold for us, even if we're too hungry, or maybe not when we're too full, that might be an obstacle. But whether it's too hot or too cold, or the weather is how we like it or not how we like it, or if it's sunny out, we feel kind of happy and glad, and if it's rainy out, we feel kind of lonely and depressed. And just if we get affected in those ways by the weather, but just reflecting on it, that can I just practice in any situation? So whether things aren't completely optimal in the monastery, can it just be good enough? And we just train our mind in that way, and then that way our comfort zone becomes very, very wide. And then whether we're traveling, whatever we're doing, we find we'll be able to collect our mind, establish mindfulness, and stay with the Dhamma, stay with the practice. So that's just something to think about, because it's pretty easy to get into that rut of, well, only if I'm around the right people, only if I'm not being criticized, only if I'm just in just the right situation can I actually practice. But really it's when we're doing that mental calculation, when we're thinking, how do I get what I want? That's when we practice, because that's desire, that's craving. So that's when we see craving. So when we're in another theme is that idea that it's a bit of a misunderstanding actually to say that craving is the cause of suffering. So when I read the phrase craving is the cause of suffering in the Four Noble Truths, for me that makes me think there's craving and then there's suffering sometime later. So, but actually the state of craving, what it is the prerequisite for suffering. I like to think of it more like that. Craving is the prerequisite for suffering. So if there's craving, that is suffering here and now. If there's desire, that is suffering here and now. If there's anger, that is suffering here and now. When seen in that way, then we see suffering immediately, and we see the cause of it immediately in the same moment. And then we can start to say, oh, right, it's not that I get angry, then I suffer later. It's that when I'm angry, that is suffering here and now. When the heart is full of craving and longing, that is suffering here and now. So there's that sense of lack in the heart, and that is suffering here and now. So we start to see that, and then when our mind is starting to think about how we can optimize our external situation, how I can get in just the right situation where I get what I like, and I'm only around the people I like, and then that is suffering here and now. So just to reflect on those things, and when we reflect in that way, we find to just be able to practice anytime. It's always kind of ripe for practice. It's not just waiting to get to the meditation, waiting to go to puja. The mind is always the mind, and the practice is always the practice. So we can actually tap into it anytime we want and as often as we feel like we're going to develop ourselves. So leave that as a reflection this morning.